doesn't have to be just an El Salvador thing or just a, oh, other people that their fiat currency isn't working thing or whatever. No, I do think that living on Bitcoin and using Bitcoin can be a suburbs American thing with regular people, with regular family and mortgages. Like I think Bitcoin and all the tools like around it are 100% here today. So we talk about theory way too much and don't talk about like implementation and just like how is Bitcoin getting into our personal finances like today?
I live unbanked off of cryptocurrency, and I use Bitrefill extensively because it lets me pay with crypto at places that don't yet accept it directly. This one service, more than any other, helps me live on crypto, pay your prepaid phone bill, or buy gift cards to thousands of major retailers around the world, all with cryptocurrency, including for exact amounts so you don't have to buy more gift credit than you need for a specific purchase. You can use Bitrefill without an account, but if you get an account, you can earn rewards points, which translate to savings, and you can also hold a balance denominated in dollars or euros to protect yourself against market crashes. Go to bitrefill.com, click Create Account, and enter the referral code DCN, or follow the link in the description. Say hi. There we go. So, hey everyone, I have the fantastic pleasure of speaking with the one and only Brian Harrington today. How's it going, man?
What's up, guys? Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So I obviously Twitter is where most of the crypto world comes together, and I saw you run around Twitter with irrepressible enthusiasm talking about using Bitcoin in real ways for real money today, not tomorrow, not 10 years from now. And that is something that I've always been about, and I like to talk to people who are kind of interested in the exact same sort of thing, especially, because crypto is so much theory. And it seems like there's like a developer class just working behind the scenes, just making everything happen. And then the people up front are basically kind of like salespeople that in a roundabout way are trying to get people to buy their tokens so they make money, and whether it's Bitcoin or other tokens. And the actual end user product kind of thing is something that's been sorely lacking. And just to see someone actually caring about that it's rare. It's not like it never happens, but it is rare. And so I figured that, especially since like the digital cash thing is something that was big in the Bitcoin world in the earlier days and kind of like dropped off in 2016, 2017, 18, 19. And to see so I'd really like to have that accurately represented. Like, what is the actual use of Bitcoin as money today by real people? And so, yeah, why don't you give your little superhero Batman origin story type deal about how you got into crypto to begin with, and then then where you are today.
Yeah, no, I love the exact intersection of what you're talking about too. I think that's why we've been able to connect on Twitter, and because I recognized I can explain how I got into Bitcoin, but then I recognized just now like all the tools are available. Like it doesn't have to be just an El Salvador thing or just a, oh, other people that their fiat currency isn't working thing or whatever. No, I do think that living on Bitcoin and using Bitcoin can be a suburbs American thing with regular people, with regular family and mortgages. Like I think Bitcoin and all the tools like around it are 100% here today. So I agree with you. Sometimes the theory has like, we talk about theory way too much and don't talk about like implementation and just like how is Bitcoin getting into our personal finances like today? So yeah, definitely want to spend the majority of the time on that intersection. Got into Bitcoin in 2015. Every year from there, as in like bought my first Bitcoin in 2015. And then every year from there, just got more and more ramped up. I used to work on political campaigns back in the day, but then as my like interest in that was like going down, because you kind of understand how people that are campaign operatives, you just get very jaded, and you either you stay a campaign operative your entire life or you go into the government. And like either way, I was seeing people that were older than me and just not really exactly wanting to do that. So as that interest was like going down, my interest in Bitcoin was going up. And look, I just sat on YouTube and watched Tone Base and Jimmy Song and everyone else who was like on YouTube and dug through it. And I did like all the altcoins things, like have tried like all of that. And then I just like typical like story goes, read the Bitcoin standard, decided to pull all the way back into Bitcoin. since then, like I've like messed around with, I've used like Lightning Liquid and RSK. So I've never used drive chains or state chains yet, but I do like try to stay like up to speed on using every side chain and layer of Bitcoin that there is. I have tried like DeFi. I like believe in like NFTs and Liquid and like all that stuff. And so I'm open to whatever, but I do believe that like Bitcoin is like going to be the money of the future. So I try to stay like super focused on that and help new people stay focused on that. I'm a really big fan of meetups. I work like in the like industry, I guess. Like my day job is I work for a company called Choice that helps people get Bitcoin and crypto into their IRA. So if you have money stuck at Fidelity or Schwab or TD Ameritrade and you used to work a job before you got into Bitcoin, and you still got money in those 401ks and IRAs, you don't have to pay the penalties to get the money out. You can roll it over and get it into investments that you believe in. So that's what I do day to day. I'm married and I have like a 7-month-old, and I also like, I'm a big fan of the new like get on zero like hashtag that's kind of like going around. Like I literally just this week drained my like Ally bank account and am like going as close as possible to like using Bitcoin full time.
Yeah, so get on zero is basically get on zero fiat, like have no fiat. Yeah, and I mean, obviously that's something that I resonate with very strongly. And one thing I found out throughout the years on that is oddly enough, the very first thing that all of blockchain has tried to solve, with Bitcoin is still one of the harder ones to solve today, which is the nexus of basically payments in a native non-fiat, non-custodial thing, i.e. like Bitcoin. And just that all those problems together seem to be something that a lot of people, it doesn't seem like it seems like for, at least as far as money is concerned, the risk versus reward is just not there, because a lot of people really, it's difficult. You have to change people's daily payment habits and things like that. And then like, what do they get? They get something that's intangible to them in a day-to-day, maybe. Again, we're going to get into this, right? Don't freak out yet. But like to most people, it's intangible. They just like do a big pain in the ass to just basically buy their coffee the same as they always have. And so it's been kind of pushed to the back burner by a lot of the community as people have done other things. And I mean, that's literally the entire reason I'm in this space to begin with. So, all this kind of stuff. First off, when you started promoting Bitcoin as a form of payments, trying to get people to use it, was there anything resembling a usable Lightning network at that time?
Yeah, when I started, yeah. So I'm like, you can find me on YouTube saying the like, don't spend your Bitcoin, spend your fiat, like because of Gresham's law. Like all you have me on record like saying stuff like that. And now I've been more just like, look, apparent like this question of, well, where can I spend it? If you actually just slow down and listen to new people, they'll say, well, where can I spend it? And I did get to the point where I was like, dude, instead of lecturing this person about whatever it is, like, why don't I just answer their question and explain to them where they can spend it? And that's because of what happened to me personally, like with this taco shop and this guy being like, dude, like, let's set it up here. And then when I saw that happen with my own eyes and saw how fun that was to be able to participate in that was cool. And I do have to give a gigantic credit to like Strike App. Like Strike App did open the eyes of like myself, and I believe a lot of people, where it was the like bridge between being able to spend your fiat and the business receive Bitcoin. Like I was joking today on Twitter, like, and I'm trying to have fun with this new language of like I believe in cross-chain interoperability. The chains that I'm most interested in watching work together are the ACH network and the Bitcoin network. Because like the ACH network is the main way that everyone gets their direct deposits, and it's the main way that everyone pays their bills and things like that. And so like if Bitcoin can like be like interoperable with that, that's gonna make it even easier for like a new class of people to live on Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's been one of those difficult things over the years. Like I remember in the early days getting businesses set up with BitPay. When BitPay was like the thing, and it would just be like, it was an easy sales pitch. You get as much or as little as you want in Bitcoin. 1% fee, I believe it was, to convert to your bank account, and just auto converts if you need to. And it just was that easy, scan a QR code, send. And then over the time, it started to get, this isn't like a dunk on BitPay hour. I'm glad that they're there still providing payments for people, but the experience got difficult. Like they switched to, I think, BIP 70 invoices, and pretty much no wallets out there could use them at the time. Literally, I think when they switched, only the BitPay wallet could do that, which is kind of hilarious. And then now there's a whole bunch of wallets that can do it, but the experience is like, I went to Arizona in early December of this last year, and I was trying to buy my plane ticket, and so it took me to a BitPay scene, and when I hit pay with BitPay, I get this giant list of like, which wallet are you paying with, and all these that go like, and just, this is horrible. And I tried with one, it didn't work, and I had to try with another one, and then it timed out, and then I ended up having to actually just pay someone the crypto and then have them use their card to do the flight thing, because it was such a terrible experience on that kind of a time frame. It was pretty crazy. And so it's kind of crazy to see that, like, great, and then the giant dip in actual usability for the end user, and start to come around to the end to where we're at now.
And I think I think it's also good to talk about how when Bitcoin forked, it wasn't just the like code that forked, it was the community that forked. As like cheesy as those words may be for people, or as kind of glossing over the like important software discussion that was happening, like all everything is what it is. But I do think we're still climbing out of that, of the like, what is Bitcoin? Like, what is Bitcoin is still a thing that gets talked about like all the time. And so that like, because, and then a lot of the most well-financed startups at that time also were like the commerce startups. Like that was a thing of like getting the merchant adoption, like seeing that start to happen in the parallel like circular economy. And so I think it's interesting. I like seeing how it's interesting how every class of Bitcoiner just like has a different perspective on each like other class of Bitcoiner. And so much of what we see on Twitter is like people from different classes like talking past each other almost with like different. But what's funny is like with Bitcoin Beach, like and kind of even me, I don't have any baggage from that. Like I don't have any baggage from like watching like BitPay have a great experience and not having a good experience, or like going to early meetups where those tension was there back then. All I have is what I know, and all I have is the world that I'm looking at right now, which all changed in 2020 again, and saying, dude, the tools have gotten so good. Like Strike app is good. There's like 5 apps more maybe that lets you get your paycheck in Bitcoin. And we know that like NFL players are tweeting about saying the words paycheck and Bitcoin in the same sentence. And as soon as we're talking about people getting paid in Bitcoin, the next normie question is, well, how do I pay my bills with Bitcoin? Like, and so I don't think that like it's the next wave of like quote unquote normies isn't going to need this like verbal jujitsu that we have to do right now. I think with like people that kind of have baggage from watching the process play out.
Yeah, I think that is kind of interesting point that like, I think the baggage is to a certain extent, a lot of, maybe I'm being a little bit mean, but a lot of excuses to not do things, not follow your logical conclusion. It's kind of like you come on with like the state of wherever Bitcoin was when you came on board, and then you just build a bunch of nonsense on top of that like frozen state. It never evolves. And then the new people, I think it is very interesting. And this is one of those things I've been trying to solve for years. I mean, since 2013, basically trying to get people to use crypto. And it seems like I just remember hitting these pain points of like, all right, so I'll have this app, we'll promote this app that works really well. You can like buy crypto first, and then when you spend it, the other person gives you a discount, so it's worth it. And then just like, who the hell is going to go through all those hoops just to buy something with their fiat, spend it, and then it wasn't really working. But now there's something very different where people are trying to. It's like people have it first and then they want to spend it, rather than they want to spend it and that's how they have it. Just the world we're in today. I mean, I think it would have happened eventually, but you are right. In the last 2 years has gotten people seeing what people in like other countries like I grew up in Mexico. I remember the peso crisis of the 90s. Like, people around the world see that. But here in the US, people just didn't understand until now how bad things could get.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. No,
so what's it
for
been
sure.
like in the last couple of years then? You mentioned like the accelerant of, the last couple of years. What's it been like with the Bitcoin scene and the adoption scene the last couple of years? What changed?
I I think the tools, like the tools have gotten better. The whole like
Mm-hmm.
letting Strike app, letting you spend your fiat in the business receiving Bitcoin cut through because what was
Mm-hmm.
the main gripe that most people on Bitcoin Twitter have is like capital gains taxes. And so Strike
Mm-hmm.
just slices right through that. And the main gripe is the whole number go up. Like because in number go up and payments go around are both important. But if you ask them like standard person off of Bitcoin Twitter, like 95% of people are going to side with number. Like if you're gun to the head, you forced to pick one, people are going to pick
Mm-hmm.
number go up. Like because that's what their incentive is, and because like that's what the store of value is. Like that, in my opinion, that argument has won as far as like
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin has won savings and has won it being like a better store of value. And so it's like just now people are like being willing to have the conversation about the medium exchange now and the game theory of like one. So Strike App helped cut through a lot of it. What I think we're now up against is a class of people that believe that like Bitcoin backed like fiat will still exist because Bitcoin backed loans of fiat is just going to kind of continue the fiat thing. Whereas I take the alternate approach where I'm basically more of a entrepreneurs and producers have leverage. If the tools are getting so good that if the pizza shop, if the coffee shop, if the car
Mm-hmm.
manufacturer, if the whatever, if they wake up one day and they flip the switch that's like, no, if you want this, you're gonna pay in Bitcoin, go figure out how to get some. Like, please step out of line. We only take Bitcoin. If the
Mm-hmm.
producers choose to say that because the currency like either gets so bad or they like ideologically choose to do that, there's no like that's it. When people stop working for dollars, that's it. There's no
Yeah. When
that's
they
it.
stop accepting it. Yeah, and that's one thing about like the whole Gresham's law idea, which, I mean, who the hell is this Gresham and who made him a lawyer? But like it is, I think it's true in a short term, whereas if you have crappy money, you're always going to spend your Chuck E. Cheese tokens or gift cards before your fiat, and then you're going to spend your fiat before whatever else, or a lot of people will. But the thing is, why would anyone keep on trying to acquire bad money afterwards? It flushes out eventually. And you mean you will see that. It's funny because I still remember I went to San Diego for a conference, some crypto conference, and then I went to there was some taco stand outside, and they had like a 5% surcharge for using a card. Or no, I think it was a 5%, or it was either that or a 5% discount for using cash. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, it's the
Yep.
same base currency, except the actual usefulness of like a non KYC kind of permissionless. I mean, we don't really need the government's permission to use cash. They just produce it. So it's got some crypto like properties, I guess. But like there's the premium on that because they got to pay employees. Probably most of their employees don't have bank accounts for like legal/immigration reasons, and it's just going to cost them so much more to like get it out of the bank and deal with all that. And it just works like that. And so I think that before that's the thing about the free market. Everything has a price. Everything has a cost, and it doesn't always show up in dollar terms, so to speak, immediately, but it does eventually. So pretty soon we might start seeing people doing a fiat surcharge when accepting goods and services.
It's just like gas stations. Like gas stations give two prices. And I think every business can start giving two prices. And soon it's going to be it's literally like the scene in Star Wars where the guy goes, "Sorry, we don't take Republic credits."
Yeah.
Like I don't take Republic credits. And if you're gonna pay with Republic credits, it's gonna cost double.
Yeah. So on the business side of things, first off, could you clarify? You're talking about the two things is like number go up, but also like capital gains, right? So
I'm talking about well, no, when I said that, I was like the two things are number go up and payments go around. Like
yeah,
both of
sorry
those
about
things
that.
are important.
But the capital
Yeah.
gains part, you said like Strike helps you get around that. What
Correct.
specifically
Yeah.
were you talking about? Was it in when you spend it or what?
Yeah, because you're not like spending Bitcoin. You're like
Hmm.
spending your fiat, and then the business is receiving Bitcoin.
Okay. So that's a way for the business to get Bitcoin
Yeah,
without you
it's like
actually having
it's
any
a
or having to
transition.
send.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a good thing to like help Bitcoiners that are a little nervous about beginning to enter the circular economy. It's like a gateway drug for them to start doing it because
Yeah.
Strike is just like a Venmo that speaks Bitcoin.
Hmm.
So it's just like swiping your debit card. It's the same, like, because everyone's stuck in this, like, a lot of people, it's hard for them to jump to like, you're always spending Bitcoin. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter. It doesn't matter if you're passing dollars over to the other person. You're still effectively spending Bitcoin because once you become a Bitcoiner, every
Hmm.
single decision and all of your labor and time and all of your spending decisions are all measured in Bitcoin, regardless of whether you're remitting the payment in dollars or remitting the payment with a credit card or remitting the payment with, barter. It doesn't matter. Like you already like have moved your unit of account over to Bitcoin. So,
Hmm.
but some people still struggle with like, why would I spend my hard money? I want to spend my soft money. So Strike allows them to spend their soft money in the business to receive Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean that's a good way to have. It's good to have like a two-sided kind of equation to that. Now, the thing with what I've noticed with businesses that most people ask when I'm trying to talk to them, it's a lot easier to get an individual to spend crypto than it is for a business to receive it, and it's not just based on infrastructure. Like there's more apps involved and staff training and stuff, but it's because of if someone buys a bunch of Bitcoin and then they spend it throughout the year, it's not too difficult to just plug in like a tax accounting software, figure out your profit and loss, and then just file that and you have no problem. Or if you spend small enough amounts, I mean, this is definitely not legal advice here, but no one
For
really
sure.
tends to care. Like
For sure.
it's just very, very simple. But then when a business is receiving Bitcoin, and then what happens there? What does their balance look
Yeah.
like? How do they do their taxes? That becomes a much bigger challenge than for the individual. So, have you seen what the solutions I've seen so far have been some there have been a few businesses that write it off as a marketing expense. Like they pretend that the crypto doesn't exist and they
Yeah.
just say that like we're giving this away for free to just get new people in the door kind of thing. And I guess with small enough amounts no one would really care about that. And then other than that I've seen businesses the owner just puts cash in the till for every crypto transaction. So the business remains entirely in fiat, but the owner just assumes all the risk and potential
Yeah.
upside of the crypto. Is that mostly what you've seen? Or you've seen other ways of people doing where the businesses actually receive and hold the crypto?
Yeah, so I think the best way that I've seen it done is where the business receives and holds the Bitcoin, and like we're really at the stage where you're just trying to get 0.5% to, if you have 1% of your customers paying Bitcoin, that's really good. Like I
Yeah.
think we're at a place where we're still under 1%, and I think the best businesses are ones that have a local group of a meetup that
Mm-hmm.
comes routinely, and so that group spends there, and the business just holds the Bitcoin, and then they just hold the Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And so then
Mm-hmm.
they just do all their other expenses um, with the 99% of the other ways that they're getting paid. And then you just treat that as your business savings account.
Yeah. And so obviously if you have a little bit more of a buffer, it helps to be a little bit. As far as I know, here in New Hampshire, of all the many dozens of businesses that take a variety of cryptos across the entire state, there's only like one or two that I know auto converts, and that's because they have small enough margins that they can't afford if it's like a 10% dip in a week, it could actually hurt the business. But like
Sure.
everyone else, as far as I know, holds it. There's a French bakery in town that I think they sold everything in the beginning of last year because they were in trouble because of like shutdown related things,
Yeah.
and then they use that to stay afloat. So we've been trying very hard to get them more crypto into their
Yeah.
system so they kind of do that. But yeah, that's kind of a thing. So have you found a lot of business hesitancy among people who are interested? They're like, oh, this is great, but then they're like, I don't know, man, that seems like risky, that seems complicated, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the majority of people that I've talked to have all been inbound leads to our meetup. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of the Bitcoin meetup, like being
Mm-hmm.
first. Like I think that's definitely the most important thing first. And then the like businesses, the like Next Burger in Orange County that takes Bitcoin, and the taco stand Tacos La Estrella out in Rialto that takes Bitcoin have all been inbound to the meetup. And so those have been the most successful for like Orange County Bitcoin Network. And then there's one bar, there's a bar, Quantum Brewing in San Diego also that takes it. And there's 2 bars up in the Bay Area, but I haven't been up there to their meetups yet.
Yeah, so where are you listing these to get people to know that they're actually there?
We have a Google map. Mostly it's just dispersed among kind of like the meetup Twitter accounts. That part, the map is a tough part. Like that part, talked to multiple people, and I haven't seen like a great solution yet for it.
Yeah, as far as I know, like I remember CoinMap was a big thing back in the day, but then it just became flooded, and now it's extremely inaccurate. Like I can't really find anything good on CoinMap.
I also think it really is on the business also. Like it really is on the business to participate and like be a part of the community. That's again why I'm just a big fan of meetups. Like I do think I think any town in America, I think the plan is you start a Bitcoin meetup, and that can be from 2 people to 20 people to 100 people. It doesn't matter. Any number in there is fine. But then you have the recurring time where you come together and you talk about like advancing Bitcoin in your like local city, and then you have one business that takes it. Like our number one bar where we enjoyed hanging out the most. I wasn't able to convince the owner to take it because I wasn't able to connect with them enough. But like our main bartender, she took her tips in Bitcoin, and it was awesome. And we like tipped her like 2 million sats over the course of like a year, like when we're like there hanging out there. And then if you just think about that from a community perspective, dude, when would she have ever gotten to that point if it hadn't been for us like hanging out with her and talking to her? And that's why when dude, like talking to your barber and like bringing it up at places, I think does so much good. Like I love checking out at places and just casually saying, like, if they're just like, hey, it'll be $17. I'm like, okay, sweet. Like, do you want dollars or Bitcoin? Like, I love saying that. I say that off the cuff all the time, like to people that I'm just talking with.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way this whole thing spreads to begin with. Now, as far as businesses holding it, and is there any kind of a way for them to re-spend it to pay expenses and stuff? Like, that seems to be one of those things. I know locally some of them use it on like to buy stuff on Amazon or things like that occasionally, but it's still very limited. Mostly it's just like, oh yeah, maybe I'll go to the other business next to me that has it. But it's like, but that's more like luxury type things. It's more for fun. It's not like, oh, I can pay my suppliers in this kind of thing.
So that, not that I'm aware of yet, but I completely agree that would be awesome. And that would be where I have this thing where I understand that Bitcoin is very like, don't have heroes like culture because heroes let you down and things like that. I do think leadership is important. And I do think that like, I was very excited when Tesla was like, hey, we're going to start taking it, and the way they contributed BTC Pay server and they ran BTC Pay. And when he like backtracked, that like bummed me out a lot because I felt like we really were like clicking forward, like going through this thing of, and to be honest, like I do think that MicroStrategy could do a better job of like moving Bitcoin into their supply chain. Like they have max leverage, like, and could move it into their supply chain and ask their customers to pay them in it. Like so two answers to this question. It's like one, on the corporate side, I 100% like want and I'm hoping for a day where like corporate leaders do stand up and like use leverage that they have to like move it into their supply chains. And then on the small business side, I wish there was a way to like rent a small business for 6 months because I want to do it. Like I want to like be a part of something and show that like it doesn't have to be complicated. Like you can get customers to, businesses can dictate payment terms. They can, like of any size. If you're selling something that people want, you can create a flow and get them to do it. So there was I don't know. So I would love to see people with leverage move it into their supply chains. Definitely.
Yeah. When you have people coming to the meetup, how often is it that they're kind of ready, they're just already on board with the idea of using Bitcoin as money? And how often is it just that you have people just want to talk about, why would you ever spend that, man? That's stupid.
So of in the last like 12 months, I would say 80% plus like are on board.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that is the main thing that I've seen change
Mm-hmm.
between like I would call it like midway through 2019 was
Mm-hmm.
when the transition started. And I would say like midway through 2020 is when we got to like 80% plus of being able to like be fully on board with it.
That's interesting. It's a good change over time.
It,
It
it's
yeah.
totally a good change. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a little bit of I ask some of these questions sometimes too because I don't know what's going on with the rest of the world because I've noticed the average New Hampshire crypto user is radically different from the average crypto person elsewhere on
For sure.
average. Like
Mhm.
every single one of them, as far as I know, like hold their own keys, use it, accept it, and they're it's never really a thing. And then you go to and they're also not usually super knowledgeable about what the crypto celebrity world or what this newest person said or whatever. But
For
then they
sure.
go to conferences and stuff. It is very different. You have people talking about all their trading strategies, all their other stuff, and just like not really that interested in, or actually, even if they are interested, just really ignorant. Like most don't even have a mobile wallet with any crypto on them at any given time.
For sure. No, we've noticed, dude, so if when you set up BTC Pay for the first time or
Mm-hmm.
like people show up, they'll pay out of Coinbase. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you meet someone for the very first time yeah, like you'll have people paying on chain out of Coinbase.
Mm-hmm.
But be excited. But be excited that like, oh wow, I didn't know that people were doing this. Like so it's
Mm-hmm.
all about the framing. It's
Mm-hmm.
100% all about the framing.
Yeah. How often? What is the rough on-chain to Lightning ratio as far as like payments that you've seen, and has that changed much in the last let's just say year or so?
Yeah, so everything that I've done has been 90% Lightning, and that's
Mm.
because of the time at which I like started doing it. And so and again because of Strike app like as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And so are most people then, as their personal spending wallet, using Strike, or are they using something else like say Moon or Phoenix or Breeze or something?
Strike. 90% are fiat
Hmm.
checking accounts hooked up to Strike.
Okay. And so
Yep.
they have. So I don't use Strike because I don't use fiat. I don't have a bank
Yep.
account, all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. So forgive
Yep.
me if these are some like ignorant questions of exactly how it
No,
works
for
because
sure.
I can't try it out for myself.
Yep.
So when they're doing that, they have their account hooked up to Strike that they can buy. In Strike, they can have a Bitcoin balance, and then that's their local Lightning wallet that they can send and receive.
Close.
Right.
It's a dollar balance. Like so you
Mm-hmm.
load it so it'd be like you hook up your checking account, you're like deposit $50, it sits as $50 in fiat, and then when you click
Mm-hmm.
scan invoice, scan the Lightning invoice, pays the Lightning invoice
Mm.
from the fiat balance.
Interesting. So it's basically
Mhm.
like from their big Lightning node, you're sort of buying a piece of their supply that they have,
Yeah.
and then they just send it out on that channel right
Yes.
over.
Yes.
Have you had much success in people using other kinds of wallet, like the hold your own keys kind of stuff, or do people really care, or like how's that work in comparison to like just setting them up with Strike?
No, yes. So like what's cool is that like Nextburger, so we set up
Mm-hmm.
BTC Pay server for them and then we had a big party on the very first day that they were there. And then like I said, 90% of just the regular like basic like people will show
Mm-hmm.
up with Strike and pay out of Strike. But then no, we've had people pay out of the like Bitcoin Beach wallet. We've had people pay out
Mm-hmm.
of Breeze. We've had people pay out of Moon. So like we would get Blue Wallet. Like we would get the
Mm-hmm.
one-offs from each of those. And um I'm not, admittedly, like I'm not the greatest like Lightning Network node operator,
Mm-hmm.
but we did have enough people being willing to like set up the inbound channels that like every wall that we tried did go through.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't have many bumps along the way with like people like, oh, it says you don't have enough liquidity for this, or can't find a route, or something like that. Has that been a
Yeah.
thing that you've had to deal with over the years?
For sure. No, yeah, for sure. You hit that. You hit that. And you'll hit
Hmm.
times where like it'll spin, for a minute and it'll like work
Hmm.
on finding it. Yeah, definitely. Or like when we ran our Christmas party on Open Node. This was just last December, and
Hmm.
it was the kind of thing where we were in the like bottom of a building at a nice venue, and I didn't do a great job of like kind of bulletproofing that the Wi-Fi would like reach the check-in counter down there, and
Yeah.
so we definitely like had a tough time with that a little bit.
Yeah, that reminds me of what I call the Fezziwig problem, which was there's this one like whimsical cafe called Fezziwigs that they took crypto and had a bunch of like it was like almost like a Faraday cage in there. They had like a lot of glass and metal and stuff, and somehow there was an edge case when walking from the street in it the amount of time it took to get to the counter and pay disrupted the connections so that the nodes on the specific wallet wouldn't work. And
Yeah.
so it's like this error of like why does it always crash and not work was like a
Yep.
several month long process trying to troubleshoot until we got fixes this one extreme edge case that if
Yep.
this was actually in a basement and you just went on the Wi-Fi, by the time it would kick in it would be fine. Or if this was not in this like metal this weird metal and glass cage area, then it also would not be a problem. But it's just the combination of like the time frame plus that was like a really specific edge
Totally.
case, and yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when you're on the phone and you like step outside your door and your Wi-Fi drops and you're
Yeah,
like in that no man's land between your phone trying to figure out the next leg.
yeah. So how? Let's talk about like growth metrics and stuff. I mean, obviously, crypto's on the up and up. You see a bunch of more people using it. Is this like growing like gangbusters right now? Is it just like a slow trickle at this point? And how is like the local like merchant adoption scene? I mean, I know you got a few, but like,
Yeah.
is it obviously some drop off just from like being closed permanently, or they get a new owner stuff? There's always turnover. Is it like, is it growing and growing from what you've been able to see?
I would say the like what's growing is the meetups. Like
Mm-hmm.
the meetups are growing and they take different forms, but
Mm-hmm.
like and smaller ones will pop up or like different people will just like go to different towns that were driving a far distance and then they'll go over here
Mm-hmm.
and like collect new people. And as far as like I'm a big fan of like basically what you guys are doing in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
Like the all politics is local, all just like grassroots things are local, whether you're doing
Mm-hmm.
whether it's Bitcoin or anything else. I'm a big fan of like knowing people like in your town. And so
Mm-hmm.
to me that's like what the repetitive conversations of going to the same bar week in and week out and just continuing to talk to every single person there, that's what I'm like closest to. And
Mm-hmm.
so from growth metrics as far as like people like getting it and stacking like through the dip and just kind of like Bitcoin being normalized to them, I would like is just as good as like it has been.
Yeah, do you see a lot of other groups? I mean, you got your local group; it's doing pretty well. I'm in my little island over here; it's doing well. Uh, do you have any kind of communication or visibility with people in other parts of the country and the world? Obviously, there's like an El Salvador group. Obviously,
Yeah.
Venezuela, there's a bunch of people there. But like, is this just like a couple of us in our own little fertile grounds, just kind of
Uh,
pretending like it's growing like crazy when in
yeah.
other parts of the world, it just no one really cares in other places?
Yeah. I don't think so. I that crosses my brain sometimes also, but
Mm-hmm.
no, like for example, next month, like I'm gonna speak at the like Kansas City like Bitcoin meetup.
Mm-hmm.
In December, I was at the like Austin Bitcoin meetup.
Mm-hmm.
In December, we had a meetup of meetups where like the Northern California, Central California, Southern California, and like Phoenix, Arizona, like and a few guys from Vegas like came over, and I was like, look, this like I want the West Coast people to know each other. Like I do. So it was like a meetup of meetups. And so or dude, like Sioux Falls, South Dakota, like has a Twitter
Mm-hmm.
account now, like for Bitcoin meetups. Mahler's just tweeted that like Chicago Bit Devs is starting again. And so I I do think that like, oh, last year I went to a conference in Omaha, like Omaha,
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska. So I do think that like the map is filling in.
Mm. Yeah, it starts with just like a couple people. Now,
Mm.
have you, first off, have you ever had people come in? I mean, I'm sure there's been occasional, but with any kind of decent volume, people come in that are interested in Bitcoin, but just they don't get or care. They don't care why it matters to use this stuff. Like they don't get the they don't get the whole freedom angle at all. Do you get that a lot?
I I get the so all the meetups that I've been working on, like,
Mm-hmm.
do pretty explicit, like, put on their front page that like they're focused on Bitcoin. Like
Mm-hmm.
I do try to intentionally use the word Bitcoin instead of crypto.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone is welcoming, and I'm down to talk to everyone. The first question that I do get a lot from kind of generalists that would show up is
Mm-hmm.
like, is the what about the other coins? And that,
Mm-hmm.
so to your question of the like whether they're understanding the freedom element or not, I I do like pretty explicitly tell them like
Mm-hmm.
these, like, Bitcoin is the one to me that's like achieving separation of like money and state. And like I talk, so yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I like talk to them about that. And I'm like, this is the one. And I talk about how I don't appreciate the way that like individuals are being treated by the government right now. And that's why
Yeah.
I believe like separation of money and state is important. And I do talk about the Cantillon effect and how there's just like low key corruption, like fiat money, everything that touches fiat money is like low key corrupt, and there's low key
Mm-hmm.
corruption everywhere because of the incentives are messed up. And I'm, yeah, very direct with people, and that's honestly what I enjoy about the meetups is like people. I like that for whatever reason you got into crypto because of the internet, and I super appreciate that you looked online and found our group and took time out of your day to drive over here to this bar. Like, I'm thankful that you're here, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
thankful that you asked me so that I could tell you about this. So no, I've never had anyone then be like, "Oh no, that doesn't make any sense." Like literally every person, it doesn't matter like why they showed up is like, "Oh yeah, like I guess that makes sense." Like, and their whole thing is like just very network building questions. Well, how big
Mm-hmm.
is it? You know, are there other restaurants? Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
and now on the higher on the higher might not be the right word, but like on a different level, the crypto influencer space slash Twitterverse slash all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of people out there like Max Kaiser, like Tone Phase, like Michael Saylor, like just endless, who just I mean, as far as I've been able to tell, are just very much not about, almost scornful of this sort of, useful as everyday money today kind of a thing, or they just don't care or practice it. Have you gotten much pushback for being what could possibly even be considered against the grain of like
for
the
sure.
the Bitcoin thought leader world?
Yeah, so I mean, earlier in 19, yes, but the I think the tides have shifted. And I would even say, like, I know you're just
Mm-hmm.
naming random people off the top of your head or whatever, but like,
Yeah.
dude, I think Kaiser's down. Like, dude,
Mm-hmm.
Kaiser's down and he gets it for like wants to do it. And I would even say that like Tone is down, like, and gets it. And I think there are ones that are still parroting the like it's, only sound money and like keep using dollars for spending or whatever. But if I'm thinking about just the mainstream Bitcoiner on Twitter, I think that has gotten less quiet. And I think that is to like a certain extent because of like people that kept talking about it. Like I think you've done a great job of like continuing to talk about it. And I think the tools have like come a long ways. And so, and the logic, dude, like I think the
Mm-hmm.
logic was something. I don't think there's such a weird blend of, I think people that were living on Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
pre 2016 or pre 2015 or whatever. I'm not, this is super generalizing, but
Yeah, of course.
I'm not sure that they believed that we would be as big as we are now. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure that they believe that like grandma would ever own Bitcoin, or that we
Mm-hmm.
would ever like get to this place where um like we can beat the final boss. And
Yeah.
I believe that. Like, I think we can beat the final boss. I think we do beat the final boss inside our lifetime. Like, dude, I have a 7-month-old son. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he will ever have to have a bank account in the way that me and you understand what a bank account is. I don't
Yeah.
believe that. Like, and I don't believe that he will think about dollars in the way that
Mm-hmm.
I grew up thinking about dollars. Like, I think me and you and everyone else is stopping that, like, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the like most that's why I wake up and think about Bitcoin every day. And that's why everyone else wakes up and thinks about Bitcoin every day, is because of that end game. Like, and I think that's happening right now. And I think people are recognizing that the getting paid in Bitcoin. Like, I think the getting pay me in Bitcoin meme also helped pursue that a lot also. Like, the fact that anyone with a W-2 job can pick these services now and type in their direct deposit credentials and get Bitcoin deposited, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's allowing people to use Bitcoin then as their base money.
Yeah, it's funny because that started with Bitwage way back in the day, and they're still around and kicking and all that. But it was still like I feel like Bitwage was one of those, pre-split kind of things that people did, and then post-split. Of course, I have no visibility on that. I just didn't hear people talking about it very much, and now
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of making a resurgence. It's almost like the took a few years for the collective crypto world to sort of get over the split, where
Yeah.
it's all I almost get the feeling like a lot of Bitcoin people are sort of I mean, not trying to throw too much salt out there, but like are kind of rediscovering their principles after they got rid of them for a few years so they could win a war. Which, to be fair, isn't that how wars work, right? People get rid of their principles and just do all kinds of horrendous things to win, and then they grow their morals back a few years later.
Yeah, I think that's like like you said, that's not the words that
Mm-hmm.
I would use about it, but
Yeah.
I understand that. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
understand that perspective. Um yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah. So, where do we go? What's the next biggest thing you're excited about? I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
we're talking a lot about stuff about what happened in the past, which is, relatively okay, but not as exciting as what's happening
Yep.
today. And obviously, there's just the I can only imagine part of tomorrow. But what's the part of
Mhm.
tomorrow that you know what it is and it's coming that really excites
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, the number one thing I'm most excited about right now in the present is like this get on zero hashtag, because
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a new way of expressing that all the tools are available for like dude, I'm not a cypherpunk. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
cypherpunk. I don't have a second passport. I live in like California. Like, I'm not moving to a different state. I
Mm-hmm.
love where I live. I have a 7-month old. I like work in my home office here, like with my wife. I own a home. I have a mortgage. Well, I'm belaboring the point to say that
A regular dude.
regular normie suburb people can use Bitcoin as their base currency, because
Mm-hmm.
the tools and apps are available now to use Bitcoin as your base currency. You can interact with the ACH network. You can have retirement accounts. You can pay your friends back for tacos. You can pay the businesses that choose to lean into the future. You can pay your bills that choose to live in the past, all at the same time as a normie, regular American. Like, that to me is like all of that has come together mentally in the past, last quarter of last year. And so that's what I'm most excited about right now.
Now, what do you think are the biggest challenges we still have to face before we run into this perfect crypto utopia, as it were?
Yeah. I think the bigger challenges is still like I think capital gains tax and its treatment as property is still a problem. But I think the
Mm-hmm.
way that we get over that is by the government has always thrown up problems at the government threw up problem like
Mm-hmm.
Airbnb just launched. And
Yeah.
then all these cities are trying to like peel back the freedom by saying, occupancy taxes and all this stuff or whatever. And Uber just launched. Or same
Mm-hmm.
thing, cannabis just like slow rolled itself to acceptance, slow rolled
Mm-hmm.
itself to acceptance. That's to me like what Bitcoin is going to do. Like, the software, good software writers can like we can develop software faster than the establishment can create the bureaucratic rules. So the software is going to get so good that it's just going to write itself around all the bureaucratic rules. We're like, you know how AAA, you can go into AAA and get your car registration stickers instead of standing in line at the DMV. That's like what Bitcoin apps are doing to me. Like we're just not, it doesn't matter what's like written on any of this stuff. The software is going to write itself around all this stuff. Like Cash App just rolled out Lightning Network. Square is going to turn on Lightning at the coffee shops by the end of the year. I'm not the only one who's saying that. Lots of people are saying that, like on Twitter, as a prediction that they're going to do that. So then the regular barbershop guy who you've been talking about it for 2.5 years or whatever, but he doesn't have time to listen to all the podcasts or do the whatever. And like launching a BTC Pay server is still tough to like launch on your own server or whatever. He's going to now have the switch on the back end of his Square terminal to hit yes. And then you can still pay that from whatever Lightning wallet you want. That's going to happen. And so your thing of like, yeah, what's the barrier? The barrier is still like its treatment as property, but we're just going to slow roll over that and continue to like take more and more ground on that.
As far as the treatment of property thing and the capital gains, do you think people are is it that people don't want to have to deal with the capital gains? Or is it that they're worried that it's just too difficult in their world, they'll mess up somewhere and get audited kind of thing? Like, is it a user experience kind of annoyance, or is it that they don't want to actually be paying a part of like their appreciation when they spend stuff?
I think so. Both is the answer, but I think a big chunk of it, and because I was stuck on this, like as someone who's like libertarian and libertarian leaning or whatever, we don't want to fund things we don't like. So the whole idea of taxes like is not fun because they're not doing a great job at like making the world a better place. They're making the world a worse place with our money. And so people don't like the idea of paying that. And then you get into that like purity test of like, if this thing was built to like be different than the system, it feels like you're like sacrificing and like kind of, not living up to the ideals of the system when you do like pay them. I think is a big blocker for people. And what changed with me about that is like the government already spend like 130% of the tax receipts. So like that's not the way that they're financing themselves anyway. So I can like stay stuck in my head of like, not like I shouldn't choose to own less Bitcoin for fear of that. I should just lean into the software and lean into the tools that are being created and like continue down the path.
Now, do you think some sort of a de minimis exemption type thing would just change this whole thing? Or do you think it needs to go all the way and just be not considered like liable for capital gains if you spend it?
No, I do. I 100% think that that'll be a part of the slow roll. I definitely do. I think that we're going to get to that point where a de minimis exemption will just be so obvious that it'll get passed.
Yeah, because that's interesting. I've always seen that as where, I mean, I don't really pay too close attention, but I've kind of out of the corner of my eye seeing all like the big audits and arrests and all the kind of like the more hardcore stuff that's happening, or the attention all seems to be targeted around someone buys a whole bunch of crypto of any sort, it goes up, and then they sell it all and make a killing in fiat, and then they just don't give any of that to the government. And it seems like there's a lot of, there's occasional talk about like, well, no, but if you spend, that's like a taxable event too, you should do. But as far as I know, that doesn't seem to be any focus around trying to crack down on that. That might be because there's so little of it. But then once it happens a lot and someone like buys a car, they're like, well, was this like $20 like a few years ago that you did it? And if so, like, we want some of that.
Yeah. No, that's my same observation as well. And that's what makes me feel like I think the trend of like smaller town, like city councils and like just county supervisors, like talking about Bitcoin is cool. Bitcoin is cool, like, and it's gonna go mainstream, and people are just gonna keep talking about it, and it's not gonna be able to be controlled. And I think to just do it town by town or state by state of like, hey, like again, especially as soon as Cash App turns it on, as soon as Square turns it on, little small town people are gonna be then motivated to be like, hey, no sales tax on Bitcoin spends in our town. Like
Hmm.
that will like little things like that will happen.
Now, as this kind of stuff becomes more mainstream, and you have again big providers like that jumping on board, do you worry at all that the message of like self-custodial, no one can touch it, is going to get minimized? If people are like, well, I got the Bitcoin in my Cash App, or I mean, I obviously understand like Strike is a great jump off point, and it's way better than nothing. But like, do you ever worry that people are just going to stay on Strike and Cash App and PayPal and all that with their Bitcoin, and they'll just be like, all right, done. I'm not moving it to keys I control. Why would anyone do that?
Yeah. I think so. I think what's going to happen is that checking accounts are going to be like custodial, and then that people are going to have their offline savings accounts. I think
Mm-hmm.
is like probably what's then going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think then it'll just all be about the like 100% of fiat is custodial. There's no way to self custody your fiat. Like even if you're self custodying dollars, they're still
Mm-hmm.
debasing them. So you're
Mm-hmm.
you're not self custodying like the value of anything because you can't protect anything like in fiat. So
Yeah.
I this concept of like self custody, I just think is it's almost more complex for people to understand than it is of like, oh, Bitcoin is new money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's going to be kind of later then for people. They're not,
Yeah.
maybe
But I
down the road.
also in this it's like we can still shrink the power of the so do you I guess I'd ask that as a question instead of a statement.
Hmm.
Can we still shrink the power of the people in control and of the money printer and the Cantillon effect with, 85% of crypto in custody solutions?
Slightly, definitely. Well, I wouldn't even say slightly, but significantly. Not all the way like at one, but it's
Yeah.
still something.
Yeah. Yeah. So agreed. I agree. That's how
Hmm.
I would frame it as well.
Yeah. So the different levels of this might be one, financial system doesn't really change at all. It's just everything's backed by Bitcoin, kind of like the gold standard, but a Bitcoin standard. That's like number one. I think we get modest gains from that, but it's still to where
That
you could haircut like accounts and stuff.
So, dude, that
Yeah.
I don't love that at all. Like, and that's
Hmm.
definitely not what I'm saying. That's definitely not
Yeah.
what I'm saying. I do not love the like fiat backed Bitcoin or like CBDC backed Bitcoin or like any of that like at
Hmm.
all. I think to me when I say like custodied
Hmm.
Bitcoin, I mean like sats in a like new bank. Like I think Bitcoin does allow free banking and
Hmm.
allows financial services. Like financial services are not bad. Like
Hmm.
consulting services or just like software as a service is not bad. What's bad is like when you don't have the like you can't run your own fiat node if you wanted to. I can't
Yeah.
connect to the ACH network on my own. I can't
Hmm.
connect to the credit card processing network on my own. I have to use these like gateways. But
Hmm.
if like a financial service provides me enough benefit for me to keep Bitcoin with them and then be interacting with things, that is good. Like I'm thankful for that service that's doing that for me.
Hmm. Yeah, so at the very bottom is again, as we just went over, it's not really that great of an outcome, but it's better than
Mhm.
nothing. The
Yeah.
next level would be that people uh, keep their manage to keep Bitcoin, but they still use like custodial services to like make payments or like keep certain amounts and stuff. So the government can't haircut their money. They still got their money, but they can be censored at that point, and they can't have all their money, taxed the way it is now. Maybe easier, maybe less easy. Who knows? That's like number two. Number three is most or everyone or whatever utopian figure you want to give end up not only having keys they control, but spending and using directly from keys they control. Because then at that point, it's something I was kind of wondering, I was thinking about because a lot of times in the early Bitcoin days, especially, people got really utopian about like, dude, this is going to end taxes. Like, no one's going to pay taxes anymore after this. And like, and so I was thinking about that, and there is a chance. Every single small business I've ever worked for in some capacity has done some like off the books, under the table something. It's just the reality of the world, right? In fact, I hear from some of my friends in Italy that if you want to like pay them, some businesses, if you want to just pay them via like card or whatever, they'll yell at you and tell you to get out because they want it off the books, right? And so there's clearly something like that going on. I think that crypto is going to, make that bigger, and then at some point, people don't like to acknowledge this on either side, but at some point, like, the government runs like a business, and they want to be able to, they want money, and they want to do whatever they can to get the money. And at some point, they can't just say, everyone give us money. At some point, they're going to have to make it easy for everyone to give them money, so people will give them money. And then they'll have to be like, okay, look, we're not going to tax every little thing. We're going to do some sort of a flat thing that makes sense. We won't audit you if you just pay this. And then pretty much everyone will just pay that, and it'll be a more friendly taxation system than we have today by far. And the only way we get there, I guess, is by people having their own keys, and enough people just saying, I'm not going to, again, definitely not legal advice, not advocate for anything, not today NSA and all that stuff. But by just enough people be saying, yeah, screw it, I'm not paying anything. And then in order to recapture that revenue, they'll be like, trying to find a friendlier equilibrium, I guess.
Totally. No, and I agree with all that. I think Balaji does a great job. He, on the Tim Ferriss, his latest Tim Ferriss show, he's like rebranded as like a software as a service fee. Like you're just paying them a SaaS fee to live where you live. And some places give better benefits than other benefits. Like than other places. I'm like, sounds funny, but like the whole last year, also, I honestly have a better appreciation for like HOAs than I did before, homeowners associations. Like, and it's used to be like this funny thing where people are like, bitch about their HOA and just like, oh, they're suppressing freedom and won't let me hang my flag in my house or whatever, blah, blah. But like where I was living, dude, my HOA kept our pool open the whole time. Our gym stayed open the entire time, like all this stuff. So like my SaaS fee that I was paying my HOA, like it was honestly the most well-functioning form of government that I was dealing with on a day-to-day basis was this HOA of these like 500 homes where I lived. And so that I think is a small vision of this. Like, I don't think like Bitcoin Citadel theory, it can be a little dramatized, but I don't think it's that far off. I don't think it's that bad and that far off. I do believe if the thesis of Bitcoin plays out and Bitcoin does what people like think it's going to do, Bitcoiners are going to have a lot of influence. Like we are going to be able to rebuild society in a way that is closer to like the ideas in our head than the current world is. And that'll take lots of different forms. But like one way that's the most easy to see it, just in my head right now is of city states that have like different little ways of doing things.
Well, this cycle, state representative in New Hampshire put forward a bill to secede from the U.S. I don't think it's probably going to happen this time around, but the founder of the Free State Project co-authored an op-ed with the governor of New Hampshire, who's kind of been thought of as a little bit of a rhino type person in the past, but to see that level, I'm not saying it's going to happen here first, but if it might. But regardless, what you said talking about people trying to do their own thing more and more in smaller little things, areas with like especially heavy concentrations of crypto people, it's moving in that direction for sure.
A small way that I think this could play out also, which I haven't legally researched this or wherever this is how it works, but like if an HOA, if an HOA board does vote to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet as an HOA, and the HOA diligently stacks Bitcoin, and then you fast forward the dial 10 years, and the county or city where they reside, goes the opposite direction because they held the fiat bag the whole way down, and their bond obligations bankrupt the city, then the HOA sends them a formal letter that says, we want to buy this land that we're sitting on. Like, and the HOA buys the land because they're the one that's holding the money. And the other like jurisdiction did not prepare well for the future and they don't have any money. Like, that happens.
Yeah. That could increasingly happen as you see like the wealth transfer kind of thing moving across. And yeah, it's a pretty exciting time to be alive to see all this stuff moving in that direction. Now, where could people find more about what you're doing and follow your struggle against the evil clutches of fiat in the People's Republic of California?
100%. Yeah. Twitter. Love to connect with people on Twitter. It's Brain Harrington. My DMs are open. Would love to talk to people. If you are in Southern California, definitely look up Orange County Bitcoin Network and click join on that meetup page, and you'll get emailed meetups all over Southern California. So if you're in San Diego, join the San Diego one. If you're in Inland Empire, join the Inland Empire one. But I would join all three and just like get all the emails. That's what I do.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, thanks very much for being on. And yeah, everyone have a good one.
Yeah. See ya.